All right, in this video, we're going to work the following problem. It says write a program whose main method prompts the user to enter the radius and length of a cylinder as doubles. The program should contain two other methods, one to compute the area of a circle and the other to compute the volume of a cylinder. The first method should have one parameter for the radius and then compute and return the area of the circle. The second method should have two parameters, one for the area of the base of a cylinder and the other for the length of the cylinder. The second method should compute and return the volume of the cylinder. The program should use all three methods. The main method should display the results to the user. The needed formulas are area is pi times the radius squared, and the volume is the area times the length. All right, so first thing is that we need to prompt the user and get the value for the radius and the cylinder as doubles. So I am going to use scanner. So I need my import statement at the top, import java.util.scanner. Then in the main method, since that's where the input is, it tells us to get the input. We are going to create a scanner object. Then we are going to prompt the user to enter the things that we need. So enter the radius of the base of a cylinder. And then we are going to get that as a double, right? So we would use the scanner object in, right? And then use the next double method, and that will get the input as a double. It will store that value in the variable radius. And then we would repeat that for the length. And we are also getting this as a double value, so we would use next double. All right, everything looks good. Let's test this out. I'm going to be using printf, and so I'm just going to print out the value of the radius and the length just to make sure that everything is set up the way it's supposed to. All right, so that looks like it's doing what I want. All right, so there's the input part. So it says write a program whose main method prompts the user. So we've done that first sentence. The next sentence says the program should contain two other methods, one to compute the area of a circle, the other to compute the volume of the cylinder, and here's some specific requirements for that. All right, so place your new methods inside the class body, right, in between these two curly braces, but not inside any other method. All right, I'm going to go with public static on the modifiers, just like this main method, so we don't have to create an object to run this. Next up, we need to decide on the return type for the circle area method. The formula for the area of a circle is pi times the radius squared, right? And so that's unlikely to be a whole number, right? Most of the time it's going to be a decimal most of the time. So that means that the return type on this should be a double. All right, then give it a name. I'm going to call mine circle area. And then we need to decide on the parameter list, right? In order for this method to do its job, which is to calculate the area of a circle, it needs to know what the radius is, right? And so it should have a parameter for the radius. I'm just going to go ahead and use radius. Okay, and then just put the formula here. That's really all we have to do. It's pi times the radius squared. So that'd be math.pi times math.pow radius squared. All right, and that's it. And then just checking, right, that we met the requirements here. The first method should have one parameter for the radius and then compute and return the area of the circle. So that's done. So next, the second method should have two parameters, one for the area of the base of the cylinder and the other for the area of the length of this, or the length of the cylinder. And the second method should compute and return the volume of the cylinder. Okay, so again, add another method inside the class body, right, but not inside any other method. And for right now, let's just go with public and static and on the modifiers. And then the return type we need to decide on. Since we're using this formula, it's area times length. And we know that the area of the base is likely to be a decimal number, then so is that number times the length, which is the volume. So call this double. And oops, I misspelled this thing in here. Let's call it circle area. All right, and so I'm going to call this one volume cylinder. And it's supposed to have two parameters, right? One for the area of the base and one for the cylinder length of the cylinder. And like I said, this method's job is to compute the volume given the area and the length. So in order to do its job, right, it needs to know the area and the length. So double area, double length, like so. And then just the formula is very simple, right? It's just area times length. That's it. All right, so we have our two methods set up. Then, and so it says the program should use all three methods, right? So we'll need to keep that in mind. It says the main method should display the results to the user, all right? So what we need to do is the user has typed in the radius and the length, so what we need to do is make these calculations, and we need to use both of these methods. So the first thing I'm going to do is call the circle area method. So I'm going to define a variable called area, right? And I'm going to call the circle area method. With the radius. So what's going to happen here is that the user is going to type some value in this variable radius, right? And then in this method call, what's going to happen is it's going to send that value down here, right, to the circle area method. And the circle area method is going to make its calculation, right? It is going to return, right, that value back. So the method call, this part right here, will get replaced by whatever is returned from that method, right? So if the parameter list is like the entrance to the method, the return statement is the exit, right? So we're going to have some number come in here through the entrance, right? This calculation is going to get made, right? And then the return statement is the exit. That data, that calculation is going to get returned back to where the method was called from, and that's right up here with circle areas, circle area radius, that method call. That value is going to get stored in the area. Likewise, I'm going to need to calculate the volume, right? And to do that, I'm going to calculate the volume cylinder method. Okay, and the volume cylinder method has two parameters. It needs to know the area, which we have already stored up here in area, and it needs to know the length, which we got from the user back up here. All right, so again, what's going to happen is that on this line 30 right here, when we call the volume cylinder method, it's going to look at the value that's in the variable area. It's going to look at the value that's here in the variable length. It's going to send that down here to this method. All right, so the area will go in here, the length will go in here. This calculation will get made, right? And then it will get returned back, right, to here. And this entire method call, you can just kind of think about it as being replaced with whatever number gets sent back to this method. We'll try and take a look at it after we get done running this or finishing this program. we'll try and look at it in debug mode and see if I can get that to run right. All right, so finally we want our message that we want to display to the user, right? And so I am going to have some message that looks like this. So for a cylinder with base radius blank and length, and now it's getting a little bit long, so I'm going to go to the next line so it's readable. All right, so for a cylinder with base radius blank units and length blank units, the area of the base is blank square units, and the volume of the cylinder is blank cubic units. Okay, and so that's the message that we want to send to the user. The area of the base is blank square units, and the volume of the cylinder is blank cubic units. All right, so in the first blank for a cylinder with base radius, and so we want the radius in the first blank and length in the second, which we already had. The area of the base is blank square units, so we want the area, right, which we have stored in this variable here, and the volume in the last blank. Okay. All right, so let's test that out. So enter the radius of the base. Let's say it's 10. And let's go with 20 on the length of the cylinder. All right, so it didn't like something. Conversion mismatch exception. Oh, yep, and I can see it right here. It says line 32, right? So it's right here. It's that I forgot the F, the format specifier right here. All right, so let's go with 10 and then 20. All right, it says for a cylinder with base radius 10 units and length 20 units, the area of the base is 314 point something square units, and that makes sense, right? Because the radius is 10, right? And so 10 squared is 100, and 100 times pi would be 314. And the volume of the cylinder is this, which also makes sense as well in this case, because that's going to be like this 20. I'm multiplying this number by 314 by 20, right? So doubling it would give you about 628, and then timesing it by a 10 would give you another order of magnitude there. So another decimal place. So that looks about right on the calculations. Okay. All right, and so that gets the job done. And if you want to make this, round to 2 decimal places, you would just put 0.2 in there, because that definitely bothers some people with all those decimal places. So it looks a little nicer with not all those decimal places in there. All right, so that's it. This example, right, use the value returned by these methods in another method, in this case the main method. So that's it. What I want to do now is see if I can run the debugger and kind of step you through this and exactly how it works. So if I go here to the run window and then click debug, oops, I forgot. I need to do something else in Eclipse first. So what I want to do is kind of step you through this, all right? And hopefully not too much. So what you want to do is go over here. And then click on this toggle breakpoint. You can see that added this little dot over here. It might be hard to see, but it added this little dot here. So if you just click run, it will run like it normally does, I believe. Okay, so it runs like it normally does. But if you go here to run and then debug, it's going to ask you to switch perspective when it suspends. So you can do that if you want, but then you'll have to switch back to the normal perspective. So it's going to change a little bit. Okay, and so this is what it will look like. And then what you want to do, there's two things that you can go line by line through here. And that is step into, which you're going to get a lot of details, and then step over. So step into will actually go into the other functions and look at those. And then step over will just show you the result of that. All right. So on some of these, I want to hit step into, on the others, step over. All right. So here you can see my program is suspended, right? And we're stopped here where I put that breakpoint on line 24. So if I hit F6 to step over, it's going to do that line and wait on the next one. So enter the radius of the base. Okay. And so here I would have to type some stuff in. So let's do 10. So I type in 10 like I normally do, and then hit F6 to step. All right, and you're going to see the program's going to go to the next line, hit F6 again, and now here I'm going to have to go down here and type in another value. So 20. Then I'm going to hit F6 again, step over. Okay. So what happens here, right, is now I'm on that method call, and this is the part that I really wanted to show you, right, about how this works. So remember the value for radius, right? You can see the value for radius right now is 10. Okay, if you look over here in this variable window. So I'm going to click F5 now, step into, and you're going to see it's going to jump down here to the method, right? Because this was a method call. So the method call, right, got executed. So it jumps down here. It makes this calculation, right? All right, let's see. I'm going to hit F5. Maybe I'm a little bit nervous about this. Let's see, because you can end up getting too much detail, and that's not what I want. So I'm going to click F6 and hopefully. So it returned, right? It jumped back up here, all right? And then you can see circle area radius. You can see here it says circle areas returned 314. So what happened was that value got returned, and now this entire, you can think about it as this entire method call got replaced by this value. So now that value is going to get stored in the variable area. So when I hit F6 now to step over, you're going to see it's going to create a variable called area, right? And now that value is stored in there, okay? So same thing's going to happen here. Here I'm going to hit F5 to step into, right? And you can see the value for area is now 314. The value for length is 20. Okay, so it's going to jump down here when I hit F5 for step into. So boom, this method got called, It passed the value for area down here to this area. It passed the value for length down here to this. Now it's going to make this calculation, right? And then it's going to return that calculation back up here. So I'm going to hit F6 again. Actually, let me see again. I don't want this to go into too much detail. So step over is what I want. So F6. All right, and then that's going to return. So it's going to bounce back up here to line 30 where it was called from. All right, you can see, and then up here you can see the value that was returned. So this method sent back, right, this value, 6,283. So again, you can kind of think of that as this entire method call was replaced by the value that was returned, right? That was the volume, okay? So I'm going to hit F6 again to step over, and over F6 again here, and you're going to see we're going to get that message eventually, right, about the calculations here. Okay. All right, and that is it on this example.